In the fall of 1947, the era of the blacklist had begun. Hollywood had long been under attack for subverting the morals of Americans. Charges of too much sex and violence in the movies were almost as old as the industry itself. But with the beginning of the Cold War, HUAC, or the House Un-American Activities Committee, set out to prove something new: that Hollywood was also a mouthpiece for communist propaganda.
I have seen things that I thought were against what I consider good Americanism, in my feeling, and I have seen it in, I've seen pictures I thought shouldn't have been made. Shouldn't have been made, let me put it that way.
It's absolute nonsense that a few communists were slipping by code or by gesture or allusion somehow communist messages into films. It was not happening. The American movie all over the world was taken absolutely accurately, I think, as a record of one simple declaration: America is a great country. Get there as quick as you can.
The chairman of HUAC was J. Parnell Thomas, a man who would soon be convicted for having embezzled thousands from the government during the war. Also on the committee was John Rankin, an avowed segregationist and a vocal anti-Semite, who once in the halls of Congress called Walter Winchell a slime-mongering kike. Sitting with them was a freshman congressman from California, Richard Nixon. To these men, the powers that comprised Hollywood paid tribute.
Solemnly swear the testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, to help you God. No.
The committee initially calls a group of so-called friendly witnesses, and these are people who are basically sympathetic to the House Un-American Activities Committee and do not need to be subpoenaed to testify. These are people like the studio moguls, Louis B. Mayer, Jack Warner, some of the conservative motion picture stars like Robert Taylor, Adolphe Menjou, Gary Cooper.
I have never read Karl Marx, and I don't know the basis of communism beyond what I've picked up from hearsay. What I've heard, I don't like it, because it isn't on the level.
It's unfortunate and tragic that I have to teach this committee the basic principles of Americanism.
That's not the question.
They also called a group, actually 19 Hollywood people, who they knew were in the Communist Party. Now, how did they know these people were in the Communist Party? Because they had evidence that the FBI had collected and given to them. The FBI had performed a quote-unquote black bag job. They had broken into the offices of the Communist Party in Los Angeles and copied their membership lists. And so they knew exactly who was in the party, and they photocopied people's membership cards and gave those photocopies to the committee.
The committee, looking to make the most of the publicity it was generating, chose 10 of the 19 writers and directors it knew to be the most steadfast defenders of the communist doctrine. In October 1947, they were subpoenaed.
That is not the question. That is not the question
Of the motion picture industry, to invade the right not only of me, but of the producers to their thoughts, to their opinions, and this I will not permit.
It appears to be read to the American people. Go ahead, Mr. Stripling, ask the question.
Just a minute.
Ask another question of the witness.
I accuse a member
Ask another question. You will not accuse anybody. You will not accuse anybody.
I do accuse him.
Step aside from the witness stand.
Just a moment, Mr. Chairman. Just a moment. Mr. Hornet.
The confrontational demeanor of the Hollywood 10, as they had become known, did little to help their cause. Many who initially stood behind the 10, stars like Humphrey Bogart, Lucille Ball, and Frank Sinatra, abandoned them. "I detest communists," declared Bogart in a public mea culpa. Defending the 10, he wrote, had been ill-advised, even foolish. But the committee's antics played little better. The press derided them, and many in Congress complained that HUAC embarrassed their hallowed institution.
The image of HUAC is they're a bunch of clowns, and that the 47 hearings so discredit HUAC that they don't begin investigating Hollywood again until 1951. And so among their colleagues and in the press, HUAC is considered to have run a three-ring circus. And it's very unusual that Hollywood, despite that, succumbs and folds like a cheap suit.
A month after the Hollywood 10 were indicted for contempt, the studio chiefs and their financiers met at New York's Waldorf Astoria. Eager to distance themselves from the disastrous hearings and fearful that the bad press would hurt their box office, they publicly fired the 10, stripped them of their credits, and pledged that Hollywood would never knowingly employ a communist.
And we will not re-employ any of the 10 until such time as he is acquitted or has purged himself of contempt and declares under oath that he is not a communist.
It was the start of the blacklist.